Your fresh sausage lasts 4 days in the fridge, maybe 5 if you're lucky. After that it smells wrong, looks wrong, you throw it away. 2,000 years ago, Roman soldiers marched across frozen mountains and burning deserts carrying sausage that lasted all winter. No refrigeration, no vacuum sealing, no plastic packaging, no keep below 4 degrees label. Just salt, fat, smoke, and knowledge. So here's the question. How did the Romans turn scraps of pork into something that could survive months without rotting? And what did they know about preservation that modern butchers quietly abandoned? Because the sausage in your supermarket is designed to be cooked tonight. Roman sausage was designed to outlast winter. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe, but only if you like this video. Let's get into it. The pig was Rome's protein machine. Cattle were too valuable to eat regularly. An ox pulled your plough. A cow produced your milk. Killing one wasn't a meal decision. It was an economic catastrophe. You only slaughtered cattle when they were already dying, already useless. Sheep and goats were almost as protected. The wool off a sheep's back was worth more over 10 years than a single meal. Goats produced cheese and milk. Farmers culled them carefully and rarely wasted a healthy animal. But pigs were built differently. A pig produces no wool, no milk. It can't pull a cart or work a field. The only thing a pig was ever good at was turning scraps into meat, and it did that faster and more efficiently than any other animal a Roman farmer could raise. Varro, the Roman agricultural writer who documented everything from crop rotation to livestock management, was blunt about it. It was a lazy man, he said, who bought his pork from the butcher. Every farm was expected to raise its own. Here's why. A healthy sow could carry a litter in just 110 days. Sheep and goats needed 5 months. And where a goat might give you 1 or 2 offspring a year, a sow delivered 8 to 12 piglets per litter. Twice a year, the Roman agronomists actually recommended culling litters down to 8 to keep all the piglets well fed. Even at that number, the breeding math is staggering, and the meat yield at the end of it was extraordinary. An 8-month-old pig, fully dressed, could produce around 50 kilograms of usable meat, fat, and offal, 4 to 5 times what you would get from a sheep or goat of the same age. No other animal came close. So Roman farmers didn't think of pigs the way we think of them. They weren't raised for Sunday dinner. They were raised the way we think about infrastructure. A sow on your farm was a protein supply chain, a hedge against hunger, a living food reserve that reproduced itself twice a year. But that extraordinary yield created an immediate and brutal problem. 50 kilograms of fresh meat spoils fast. No family could eat through that before it turned. No market could sell it fast enough. And in a world without cold storage, once that meat went bad, it was gone. Every slaughter forced the same decision: waste it, or figure out how to make it last. The Romans chose to figure it out, and the answer they landed on was sausage. Sausage is older than Rome, older than Greece, older than most of the civilizations we bother to remember. The Sumerians were stuffing salted meat into cleaned animal intestines more than 5,000 years ago. Archaeologists found it carved into their walls, written on their tablets. This was not a recipe passed between cooks. This was documented technology, treated with the same seriousness as irrigation or grain storage. By the time Homer was writing, around 800 BC, the Greeks were grilling fat and blood-filled sausages over open fire. It shows up in the Odyssey almost as a throwaway detail. A man tending sausages on a flame, the way you might mention someone boiling water. Completely ordinary, completely unremarkable. A Greek playwright named Epicharmus thought sausage was interesting enough to write an entire play about it. He called it simply The Sausage. Socrates apparently found this funny enough to mock one of his students over it. The student's father was a sausage seller, which in Athens made you roughly as prestigious as a sewer cleaner. By the Roman era, sausage sellers were hawking their products at city gates, outside bathhouses, at street corners. The Roman botularius, their word for sausage vendor, was a fixture of urban life. Loud, cheap, everywhere. But none of this was fine dining. Sausage existed because it solved three problems that every slaughterhouse, every farm, every military kitchen faced the moment an animal was killed. First, it used everything. The scraps, the offcuts, the pieces too small or too irregular to cure as hams or hang as joints. Trim that would otherwise rot within days. Sausage turned waste into weeks of food. Second, it concentrated the two things that fight bacteria hardest: salt and fat. Together they create a physical and chemical environment that bacteria struggle to survive in. The Romans did not need to understand the science, they could see the results. Salted, fatty meat lasted longer, every time, without exception. Third, something happens inside a curing sausage that even ancient writers did not fully recognize. The meat ferments, it stabilizes, it becomes something chemically different from what went in. That process would take centuries to explain scientifically. But the Romans had already built their entire sausage tradition around it, and they refined that tradition into one specific sausage that soldiers would carry across an entire empire. They called it Lucanica, the sausage that traveled an empire. In a Roman cookbook known as De Re Coquinaria, attributed to a writer called Apicius, we find the oldest surviving recipe for what would become Italian sausage. They called it Lucanica, named after Lucania, a region in the deep south of Italy, wedged between the heel and toe of the boot, the place we now call Basilicata. The recipe is specific: lean pork, pounded fine, abundant fat, black pepper, both ground and left whole for texture, cumin, savory, rue, parsley, pine nuts, and then an ingredient that surprises most modern readers: liquamen. Liquamen was a fermented fish sauce made by packing fish in brine for months, then straining off the liquid. The result was intensely salty, deeply savory, and used in hundreds of Roman recipes the way we use salt today. In the Lucanica recipe, there is no separate mention of salt. The liquamen was the salt. Liquid, potent, and already packed with concentrated minerals. The mixture was pounded together until the fat was fully incorporated. Then it was stuffed into thin casings, described by Apicius as intestines stretched as thin as possible. And then came the step that made all the difference. It was hung in smoke, not grilled immediately, not pan-fried, not eaten fresh, hung over slow-burning wood and left there. The result was a sausage that could survive the road, and Roman roads went everywhere. When Roman soldiers were stationed in distant provinces, from the deserts of North Africa to the cold wet plains of Britain, they could not rely on fresh meat. Supply chains were unreliable. Hunting was inconsistent. Fresh food spoiled fast on long marches. They needed something dense, stable, calorie-rich, something a soldier could carry in a pack for weeks without it turning. Lucanica was exactly that. As legions moved through Lucania and beyond, they carried the sausage with them. They traded it. They shared the method. Local people tasted it, copied it, and adapted it. The name changed as it moved north. In Lombardy, it became Luganega. In Veneto, it took on wine and warm spices. Variants spread across the Mediterranean and beyond. What started as a regional preservation method in southern Italy became one of the most widely copied food traditions in European history. The sausage you see hanging in an Italian market today traces a direct line back to that recipe. Same region, same method, same name. 2,000 years of unbroken continuity. Roman sausage lasted because it built preservation in layers, each one doing a different job, each one making the next one more effective. The first layer was salt. Salt pulls water out of meat through osmosis. As water drains away, the environment inside the sausage becomes drier. Bacteria cannot grow without water. At fresh meat moisture levels, pathogens like Salmonella and Listeria thrive. Drop that moisture level far enough through salting and drying, and almost nothing can grow. Modern food scientists measure this on a scale called water activity. Fresh meat sits at 0.98, which is paradise for pathogens. A properly salted and dried sausage, drops to 0.85 or below. At that level, the bacteria that kill people cannot function. The second layer was fat. Fat physically coats the particles of meat inside the casing, limiting how much oxygen reaches the surface. Without oxygen, many spoilage bacteria cannot function. The fat was not just there for calories. It was a structural barrier built into the mixture from the start. The third layer was fermentation. This one the Romans did not fully understand, but they built their entire method around its results. As the sausage hung at cool temperatures, bacteria naturally present in the meat began breaking down muscle tissue and producing lactic acid. That acid lowered the pH of the sausage to around 5.0. Salmonella, Staphylococcus, Listeria, Clostridium botulinum, all of them struggle to survive in an acidic environment. The sausage was making itself safer over time without anyone doing anything. It was self-stabilizing. The fourth layer was drying. As the sausage hung, moisture kept evaporating. The less moisture available inside the casing, the fewer places bacteria had left to survive. Drying finished what salting started. And then came smoke. When wood burns at low temperatures, it releases phenols and organic acids. Those compounds landed on the surface of the sausage, reacted with the proteins, and formed a physical barrier. They penetrated the fat and blocked the chemical reactions that cause rancidity. The acetic acid in smoke lowered the surface pH further, adding another hostile layer to the outside of the casing. Salt, fat, fermentation, low moisture, smoke. 5 separate mechanisms, all working at the same time, all reinforcing each other. That is why a Roman soldier could carry a sausage across half a continent and still eat it at the other end. Walk into any supermarket and you will find Italian sausage sitting in a refrigerated case, wrapped in plastic, with a use-by date printed on the label. Pork, fennel, garlic, herbs. It smells good. It tastes good. And if you do not cook it within 4 days, you throw it away. That is not a flaw. That is a design choice. Modern Italian sausage is fresh sausage. The meat is ground, seasoned, stuffed into a casing, and sold immediately. There is no drying, no fermentation, no smoke. Nothing has been done to the meat to make it resistant to spoilage. The only thing standing between that sausage and rot is the temperature of your fridge and the speed at which you cook it. Compare that to what Apicius described. Lucanica was pounded with salt-heavy liquamen, packed with fat, stuffed into thin casings, and hung in smoke, then left, for days, sometimes weeks. By the time a Roman soldier packed it into his kit, that sausage had already been through a transformation that made it chemically stable at room temperature. The difference is not just ingredients, it is time. Modern food production removed time from the equation because time costs money. A fresh sausage can go from slaughterhouse to supermarket shelf in 48 hours. A properly fermented and dried sausage takes weeks. In an industry built around speed and volume, those weeks are not commercially viable for a mass-market product. So the industry replaced time with cold chain. Instead of building durability into the meat, modern production keeps the meat permanently on the edge of spoilage and uses refrigeration to slow that process down just enough to make a sale. It works until it doesn't, until the power goes out, until the fridge runs a degree too warm, until the packaging gets compromised somewhere between the factory and your kitchen. Lucanica di Picerno, the modern protected version of the ancient sausage still made in Basilicata today, is dried and cured. It does not need to be cooked. It does not need constant refrigeration. It earned protected status from the Italian government in 2018 precisely because it represents an unbroken method, stretching back to the Roman recipe. Same region, same process. Salt, fennel, black pepper, dried in the open air. That version survived 2,000 years because the preservation was built into the meat from the start. The supermarket version needs a cold chain, a use-by date, and a customer who cooks it tonight. The recipe Apicius recorded is around 1,600 years old. The method it describes is older still, and it still works. You do not need a Roman smokehouse. You do not need a professional curing chamber. You need pork, fat, salt, and patience. The Romans did not have equipment, they had process. Start with pork shoulder and belly fat. Keep everything cold throughout. Cold meat grinds cleaner, holds its texture better, and resists the bacterial activity you do not want happening before the sausage is stuffed. The Romans did not have refrigeration, but they understood temperature. They slaughtered in autumn when the cold air did the work for them. Grind the meat coarsely. Lucanica is a rustic sausage. You want texture, not paste. Now the flavouring. This is where the Roman recipe separates itself from anything you have bought in a supermarket. Instead of salt on its own, use fish sauce. This is your liquamen substitute. It is intensely salty, deeply savoury, and it penetrates the meat differently than dry salt does. Add black pepper, cumin, crushed bay leaf, parsley and pine nuts. If you can find rue, use a small amount. It was standard in the original recipe, and it adds a bitter edge that balances the fat. Mix everything with your hands until the mixture feels sticky and cohesive. The fat should be fully distributed through the meat. This is not just about flavour. The fat is doing preservation work. Stuff into natural casings as thin as you can manage. Tie into long links. The original Apicius recipe specifically describes a thin, elongated sausage, not the thick, stubby links you find at a weekend market. Now hang them, not in the fridge, in a cool, well-ventilated space. Let the surface dry for several hours first. This step matters because smoke will not penetrate wet casing properly. Then cold smoke for 3 to 6 hours at low temperature. You are not cooking the sausage, you are sealing it. The phenols and acids in the smoke are building a chemical barrier on the surface that will protect the meat through the drying process. After smoking, hang to dry for at least 5 to 7 days. The longer you dry, the more stable the sausage becomes. What you are waiting for during those days is fermentation. The natural bacteria inside the meat are producing lactic acid. That acid is lowering the pH. The sausage is making itself safer without you doing anything at all. One food historian who recreated this exact method using the Apicius recipe reported that the result tasted nothing like commercial sausage. Denser, more complex, with a slight tang from the fermentation that fresh sausage never develops. She described it as the flavour of time itself. That tang is 2,000 years of preserved knowledge in edible form. The Romans did not waste meat. They did not slaughter a pig and hope to finish it before it's spoiled. They looked at 50 kilograms of fresh pork and immediately started solving the problem of how to make it last through winter, through campaign, through the months when nothing fresh was available. Lucanica was that solution, salt drawing moisture out of the meat, fat blocking oxygen from reaching it, fermentation producing acid that harmful bacteria could not survive in, smoke sealing the surface against anything that got through, and time doing what time does when you let it work. A Roman soldier carrying Lucanica in his pack was not carrying a snack. He was carrying preserved protein that someone had spent days engineering, insurance against hunger in a world where hunger could end a campaign. We kept the name, we kept the shape, we kept some of the spices, but we removed everything that made it last. We replaced fermentation with refrigeration, drying with plastic wrap, and weeks of curing with a 4-day use by date. The sausage survived 2,000 years. The knowledge of how to make it nearly did not. So now I want to ask you, would you try curing Roman-style sausage at home? Or is refrigeration too comfortable to give up? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.